Hello, everybody, and welcome to Health Confidential with Simone Gisondi, the podcast where the secrets of the body meet the mysteries of healing. Each week, I explore the powerful world of holistic medicine, blending ancient wisdom and cutting edge science, conventional insight, and unconventional truths to decode some of the toughest cases and the most misunderstood conditions. I'm a certified holistic cancer therapies practitioner, a registered holistic nutritionist, and certified regenerative detoxification specialist. I am not a medical doctor. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The diagnoses and therapies discussed here may not be right for you. Please consult a qualified healthcare medical provider before making changes to your health. To learn more about my work or to experience the power of the custom-made healing protocols that I develop, designed specifically for your unique body, your unique biochemistry, your history, and your internal terrain, visit simonegisondi.com and book a private consultation with me. And if this episode speaks to you, follow me on Instagram at simone.gisondi and share this episode with someone you love. Thank you for listening, and welcome to today's episode of Health Confidential. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Health Confidential. I have missed you all, and I'm happy to be back. And I brought one of the most amazing guests that you guys have ever seen anywhere because of the story that she's about to share with us. And what I love about this story, because of course I already know it, is the fact that it sheds light. It sort of unveils the mystery of the body and how it operates and how it works. This one's really going to blow you away. Let me tell you about her because she is amazing. I have with me today Savannah Alaia, and she has worked in fascia, detox, and well-being for almost 3 decades. That's right, 30 years. So she's somebody that knows her stuff. She also authored Human Food 101. She created the Face Map and Your Face Symmetry programs. Please go and check her out on Instagram. I'll have her give you guys her handle so that you could see the kind of work that she does and how that ties in with how you can attain health. And she also hosts the High Functioning Human podcast. You make sure that you check that out as well because she has a lot of wisdom there. And for the past 12 years, she has partnered with Touchstone Essentials. You guys know that I'm a big fan of that. I use their products as well for my own detoxification. And that's where she integrates clean, third-party tested supplements with practical daily routines for herself as well as her clients in her work. And through the Savannah Alaia platform, she shares digital programs, detox protocols, self-care tools, including the face stick, which I myself have to get. The face spoon.
I will send you one. I will send you one.
Oh my goodness. I actually started doing research on that. So definitely we want to talk about that. Maybe we'll have another show so that people know exactly how they can keep their youth in their face, especially, as well as the face arc. Her work weaves fascia release, which, my friends, is so important for health. I'm not talking about just beauty, but health overall. Lymph supportive techniques. So the lymphatic system is your number one system that has to help you be able to detoxify. We could talk about that in a little bit of detail. Hydration practices and whole food guidance that can support steady energy, brighter skin, and a greater sense of ease. Savannah, welcome to my show.
Simone, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation. I hope it's the beginning of many because I always just love all of the stuff that you do and the information that you put out. And it's just a real honor to be here. So thank you for having me.
I so appreciate you coming to share your story because I know that, it's one of the most mind-blowing stories that I've ever heard. And I remember when you shared it, it had such impact on me. And I know that what we are taught is that the body's defenseless and that we are exposed to certain things and that automatically means infection. And we've seen that kind of play out in the face of COVID. Although there were many people that never, ever went through any of that. We're taught that germs are villains and that they're here to overtake us. But your story defies all of that. And I really want people to take hope from the story that you shared with me because the body has divine intelligence at the end of the day. People really need to understand that. We've barely begun to understand that intelligence. And I think it's that intelligence that decides if we get sick, whether it's just based on exposure, whether it's based on the terrain, on vibration, on coherence, and all the layers that actually make up health. So let's dive into the story because I know that I'm just, people are probably like, okay, let's get to it. We want to
Mhm.
explore the mystery so that people can understand that maybe, just maybe, the body doesn't break as easily as we are taught that it does. So tell us a little bit, maybe, about how wellness, I mean, of course, when I introduced you, I talked about how wellness is such a huge part of who you are, the work that you do, your purpose. And I believe that this probably became part of who you are earlier on in life, as it does for a lot of us. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, first of all, in that the body is miraculous. And I'm still now, even after nearly 30 years of working with the body through various different processes, I am still blown away by what I witnessed the body being capable of. So I
Mm-hmm.
just want to start with that. But I think I was also very fortunate because at a very early age, my mum really brought me up with a very natural approach. She wanted to be, she was, bless her, she's actually passed now, but she wanted to be very focused on health. So she was raw as she was pregnant with me. She was doing yoga.
Wow.
When she had me, she always made sure that I started off with raw baby food. And there was this very big focus already from a very young age on vitality and health and well-being. And although as time passed through my childhood, and I had two more brothers, and she started to, you get busy as a mother, so she started to not be able to do quite as many things as she was doing before. But what she did do was she always made sure there was 50% of whatever we were eating had raw food involved. So she kept that as part of the pulse in life on the every, from the day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gave me quite a unique perspective around health from quite an early age. I remember when I would go to my friends' houses, the foods that they were having were really different to the foods that I would have at home. And people would come to my house and they would always think it was weird food. And so I was already quite early on comfortable with the idea that, okay, I might be living a little bit differently initially. But it's okay. It's okay to have a different choice. I don't need to choose the same thing that everybody else is doing. And I remember my mum, one of the main things that she really instilled in me was the sense of being connected to my feelings. And she was a psychotherapist. So I think that's probably why she was so focused on how do you feel? And I think she probably asked me that question several times a day. And initially it was around the emotional piece. What emotions are you feeling? But what happened as she continued to ask me that, and as I kept going from, I guess, what would be a standard diet in my friends' houses, then to what I was eating at home, was how am I feeling when I eat this? How am I feeling when I eat this? So I made
Amazing.
that connection to the body at quite a young age,
Mm-hmm.
because it seemed important. And as I then grew up a little more and I began to have different treatments or situations come up, my question was always, how do I feel before this? How do I feel after this? So it became very much my barometer for everything. And I didn't discover until more recently in the last few years that I'm actually synesthetic. So I hear audibly certain qualities. And so for me, that sense of how do I feel, is the frequency um, like a clear frequency, or is the frequency like disharmonious? Um, that was very present from very early on. Now, I actually believe everybody has these qualities. I only think I have them in the way I do because I ask those questions a lot. How do I feel? How am I feeling before this? How am I feeling after this? And I think it's like a muscle that if you exercise it, it becomes more obvious.
Yes.
Um, so I think that deep curiosity around all of, I feel great before this, or I don't feel so great, and now I feel better, is what really led me into more curiosity about my own body and then other people's bodies as well, because other people would be saying things like, oh, I feel really bad, or my energy is really low, or um, I'm stressed about this, or I'm angry, or I'm sad about that. And I think it just caused me to always want to listen and pay particular attention to why has that happened? What's the root of this? And I feel that I'll go a little bit into kind of the story of my own sort of growing up and meeting my partner at the time then.
Yeah.
Um, just because that leans into what we're here to talk about today. But
Yes, absolutely. I before we go there, I just want
yeah,
people to understand the value, what a beautiful gift it is that your mom opened you up to that world.
I
And
really
it's
am so grateful to her. I really, really am. She was an amazing lady, and I, I would be a very different person without that simple question.
absolutely, and it's so important that we understand the connection, to have the connection to our body, number one, to be able to be in touch with the um, entirety of what we are and who we are, especially our feelings, how our body communicates to us, why those communication signals come to us. Obviously, the body is asking us to address some of the things that it needs, but we're so disconnected from that. And it's such a beautiful gift that a caretaker, a mother can pass on to, the people, or let's say if you're a caretaker of somebody who's older, if you can open that door, or mothers to children so that they can grow up being able to address things that come health wise, uh, for those things to be addressed and in a gentle, kind way rather than just pushing, forcing the body, coercing the body. I think that is just so beautiful. And you are such an example of how, not only how important it is, but just what a gift it is and how beneficial it is for us as we traverse life, wanting to obviously attain health, maintain health, or whatnot. So I wanted to really emphasize that that's such an important first point, especially as we go in life. I wish that, everybody can have that kind of help and support so that they can obviously unlock some of the different things that are out there for us to be able to to be healthy, to reclaim our health, to maintain our health.
I
So thank you for sharing that.
thank you. I completely agree with you on that. Like but I also feel that although it was a potent start for me, I do really genuinely feel from the work I've seen over the years that this is possible for everybody, just by
Absolutely.
practicing it, you know?
Absolutely. I think that even if you care for somebody who's older, if you are able to plant a seed that opens that door for them to see a whole new world of healing, then it's an absolute gift. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now tell us, because of course everybody wants to know about this amazing, mind blowing story. Tell us about how you met your partner and go into
Yes.
that story.
Sure. So I was 18 at the time, and I was doing a mixture of all things that 18-year-olds do, from going to the pub or the bar, I suppose it would be in North America there. And but I was also, it's at the same time, I just started doing a lot of energy work on myself. So I was like this walking contradiction slightly of I'm looking after myself, but I'm also doing the things that you should do as a late teen as you head into your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a pub, which is a bar here in the UK, and I was working there, and I just met him in the bar, and it was really interesting actually. I was thinking about this earlier. I remember being very what's the word? Like I couldn't tell you if I was terrified or excited when I met him. There
Mm-hmm.
was a very strong pull towards him. And I think we all get that, at the beginning of a relationship, there is a lot of people would call chemistry. But
That's
it
right.
was also, I remember having to kind of take myself away to calm myself down because it was like I was almost having a panic attack, which to me, knowing the story now makes a lot more sense. It was almost like a preemptive of what was going to happen and my body's awareness of that without even knowing all of the information. However, we got on like a house on fire, and he was quite a bit older than me. He was 13 years older than me. He had moved here from Portugal, and he was a bit of a black sheep of his family. He'd
Oh,
come from a very wealthy family, and he'd been sent to England to learn about how to manage money and to behave himself. And he was managing a restaurant when I met him, and we just got on really well. So we started hanging out and we got together. And for the first, I guess, for the first 4 years of our relationship, we were together for 6 years in total. Um, it was, yeah, it was dynamic. He was always working really hard. I had begun to work with clients working with energy because that's what I was really interested in. I'd gotten into meditation at about the age of 7, and at 16, I'd started to get really into working with energy. So I was beginning to work with clients, and we would just hang out. He was working 18-hour days. He was probably drinking a little bit more than he should be. He liked to dabble in different drugs. That wasn't really for me, but we kind of went along with each other with that.
Right.
Now, about 4 years into our relationship, he became chronically unwell. He was exhausted. All of a sudden, he had this dramatic weight loss, and he got to the stage where he couldn't work. So he decided to take some time off to try, and he thought it was just he was tired. But if I look back now, there were little things that were happening. I remember we watched a specific film called Gia, and at the end of the film, he said to me, "This is my biggest fear."
Oh,
And I remember thinking that's a very strange thing to be identifying with a woman in the modeling industry who has AIDS, and to be panicking about that as something that
yes.
could happen to you, because I thought he's living a very normal life. I don't understand why that's coming up for him. Um, so he lost so much weight that he ended up going to the doctor, and initially they admitted him into hospital. And initially they didn't know what he had. They were throwing out all sorts of diagnoses. I mean, it was changing each day for the first 4 days. They just couldn't pinpoint it. They were saying maybe Hodgkin's lymphoma, but they weren't sure. And then all of a sudden, I think it must have been on day 6 of him being in hospital, he was rushed into a private ward. He was isolated. And I remember the first time I went in, I was told, like, you can't go in there unless you're in like completely plastic covers.
Hazmat
Um,
suit.
sorry.
Hazmat
Yeah,
suit, we call
basically
that
like a hazmat
hazardous
suit,
materials.
like
Yeah.
gloves, mask,
Yep.
hairnet, everything, like nothing. You can't have anything near him. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is extreme. And also, poor guy, like he doesn't know what's happening. He's worried about his health, and these people are basically treating him like he's this dirty, terrible thing. And I remember even in that moment, being just thinking, I can't do this. I can't put these things on myself. I don't want to wear a mask. I want to speak to him. I want to, like, when somebody's not well that you love, you want to connect with them. You don't want to
Yes.
reject them. And that felt really important to me. So I went in and I spoke to him, and I remember when he was first talking to me about this, he had tears in his eyes and he was panicking because I think he was scared for me, and then ashamed because he was eventually diagnosed then with AIDS, hepatitis C, and lymphatic tuberculosis.
Oh,
Um, yeah, all of which are obviously highly contagious, highly transmittable.
yep.
And he was given, yes, less than a year to live.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and he was terrified that I had it. Like like all he could do is he kept apologizing to me, and he was just. It was really that was the hardest part, I think, initially in the whole conversation. And I remember in that conversation being very calm. And I remember kind of checking in with my body, thinking, because I could feel he was afraid. I remember checking in with my body, thinking, how do I feel? And I really was present to it. And it came to me like, you're okay. There's nothing for you to worry about. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I trust myself, but also I am a little bit nervous because I've got, him
Yeah.
and all of the medical team around him very much panicking, very much in fear. So obviously the first thing that had to happen was I needed to be tested for all of them. And what I hadn't shared, which I probably should say, is that I'd been pregnant by him twice, and I'd chosen to have abortions both times. And the
Hmm.
last time was 3 months before he was diagnosed. And the doctors said when they looked at the information, most people here probably know, like, AIDS is like the late stage of HIV positive.
Yeah.
So they said that they thought he'd had it for maybe 6 to 8 years, they thought, looking at his blood work. Um,
Wow.
so me, they were worried for me. I just felt very calm, and I was a little confused by how calm I felt initially. But I just trusted that. And so I had the tests, and they rushed them through because they wanted to know, obviously, if I also needed to be treated or die or quarantined or whatever. And I was completely clear. I was completely clear of every single disease. And they retested it again because they were scratching their heads. They didn't understand it. Um, and even the doctors were kind of, I remember one of the doctors saying to me, I don't understand this. I've never seen anything like this. It doesn't make any sense. And all I can think is that you must be a shaman. And I remember thinking at the time, I don't even know what a shaman is. So I I was obviously incredibly grateful, and very humbled to be okay. And what it also really made me realize is that maybe contagion, as we think of it, is something completely different. Because if with the level of exposure that I've had to this man, um, having been pregnant, having, sleeping with him all
Yes.
the time and being in a room with him all the time, for 4 years up until that point, and I'm okay, then maybe what we think of contagion is something else. And it it made me question. It made me question how, also when I checked in with myself, my body's saying I'm okay. So it made me question, like, I really need to make sure I listen to this voice, because maybe this voice inside me has more information there than I even know. Um, and I guess I'd exercised that because my mum had practiced with me from very early. How do you feel? How do you feel? So me being able to hear that voice was louder, than maybe it is for everybody. But I think that voice is there. And I think if everybody like thinks about situations that you've maybe been in yourselves where, um, you say afterwards, oh, there was something in the back of my head that was kind of telling me I should have done that or I shouldn't have done that.
Hmm.
That voice is there, I think, for everyone. I don't think I'm unique in that
Absolutely.
sense either. Um, I have, maybe an extreme story that goes with this. To,
Actually, I'm surprised this story didn't make it to the news. Like, I mean,
I mean, I haven't really talked about it, Simone. I've talked about it a little bit, but I,
especially back then, Savannah, because I know that at that time it was accepted that, and I remember the just a mass hysteria when you would hear that anybody was HIV positive. It was much like how cancer had been since the beginning of time, that it's an absolute death sentence, which was fueled by the movie that you talked about. And I remember seeing it. I believe it was Angelina Jolie that played
exactly,
Gia.
yeah,
And Gia was a fashion model who was using drugs, ended up dying of AIDS at the height of her career. Gorgeous, beautiful woman, extremely successful. And but I think that what everything that you've just explained speaks so loudly to the fact that the inner environment and the host, and I don't want to just speak to the physiology when I say inner environment or the terrain, but rather the totality of the host. So you just said that your body, because you were so attuned, your body was already telling you you're okay. So you already had the answer that this had not actually, you did not rely on, oh my God, let me just test because I'm so stressed and I don't know. And but I did want to talk a little bit to the fact that you said that there was so much concern and shame in him about
yeah,
you, because he
yeah,
clearly cared about you, loved you, and he was so concerned that he had harmed you or he had
yeah,
gotten you sick, and that you would sort of fall into that same the same kind of situation that he was in, where you'd get diagnosed and you would suffer and so on and so forth. And I want to emphasize that And there's been so much work done on this from so many really well respected doctors and healers that are not necessarily degreed in the true sense of the term out in the medical world, but people like Louise Hay, who was very outspoken about the importance of working with your body and sort of commanding it and working with it to keep it in coherence and in balance. I believe Dr. Gabor Mate has spoken at large about the importance of the same thing, being in balance, coherent, and to be able to release the traumas. You started this work so early on in life that you attuned your body and you maintained that level of health energetically, emotionally, no traumas. Whereas perhaps your partner had many traumas in the background that had been left unresolved and they eventually expressed in the physical, which was the
I,
final cry for
yeah.
help.
I mean, I'm human, so I have had experiences where there have been traumas and I've got other pieces. But I think one of the reasons my mum was so supportive of really helping me connect to my feelings was because she'd come from a huge amount of trauma. And the
Ah,
understanding of if you voice something early, there's to a certain extent, there's a degree of release that happens
yeah.
in terms of what gets held inside you.
Mm-hmm.
I was always allowed to be angry or sad or unhappy or excited or joyful. Nothing was pushed down or
That is
pushed
such a
away.
gift.
And so whilst there were things that were hard, there was the permission to have the feelings. And I think that's one of the things, especially as I do the work I do, that I realize most people need permission to have a feeling about something. Some people will only let themselves have a feeling in a specific place, whether that is in the theatre or whether that is in a therapy session. But as they go through life, those emotions are less allowed in their own minds. It's a construct that they have on themselves, you know? And I think that my if I were like a glass of water, it's like my glass was quite empty because I wasn't storing up a whole load of emotions. So when I had some big
Mm,
things happen, I had capacity to
that's right.
cope with what it was. Whereas my partner at the time was didn't have capacity. He had been actually running very much from things that he was upset, sad, ashamed, angry about. And he would opt for alcohol or a drug to deal with whatever he wasn't able to process because he didn't have a tool to do that. He didn't have
Yes.
somebody asking him those questions from early. He was, as I said before, the black sheep of his family. He was kind of sent
Mm.
away at quite a young age because they couldn't really cope with him. Anyway,
That is actually the um, most of Dr. Gabor Mate's work, where he talks about addictions.
yeah.
And it's that is so multifactorial and multi-layered because a lot of addictions are actually very socially accepted.
Yeah.
If you're a workaholic, you're looked at as an overachiever and you're applauded for the fact that you become successful. If you are addicted to, let's say, going to the gym, working out, and putting your body through extreme stress, you're looked at as the same thing as an overachiever, going above and beyond. You're not a quitter, so on and so forth. And then on the other side, then there are the escapisms and the addictions where people want to numb out what they feel. But what a synchronicity. And I want to touch on this. I put out a post not too long ago about the how detrimental it is to silence or to try to stuff your feelings. And I know that that's why for me it's so impactful what you said that your mother allowed you to do and how you had that space because and culturally, I think across the board in many cultures, it is expected, especially of women,
Yeah.
and in some regards, even men. Men were not supposed to cry. Men don't cry, so you're supposed to stuff your emotions. And I made the mistake in my life to also, but it was also expected of, and so we kind of were conditioned growing up that you don't voice what you feel. You just keep yourself composed and you stuff down your feelings. And even if you hurt, so I did that just to keep the peace and to not ruffle feathers, or to keep everything, to keep the waters calm in the family. And then I ended up having a nervous breakdown, which was incredibly painful. So something I had to work on. I did something for the benefit of the family that I ended up having to fix and pay. So this kind of speaks to exactly what you said about your partner, escaping from some of the things that he had taken on that were left unaddressed. And I think it's important for everybody to know that when those things are, and this has been echoed throughout time, things fester or you leave it unaddressed and then it comes back to bite you. You're basically, the way that I look at it is that you're borrowing from the future. So
I
what you do in
100%
the
agree with
moment, you're borrowing from the future. Down the
that.
line, that comes back and you have to pay. You have to sort of like settle the bill, for lack of a
Yeah,
better term.
I think
So
that's a
it's
great
so
metaphor.
important that people understand this. I mean, and the reason why it's so impactful and important is because it speaks so clearly to how you, being in that state energetically and vibrationally and emotionally and physically, obviously, your physical just sort of echoed everything that was in the background and on the non-tangible, how the coherence and the balance and everything that was addressed, and you were not in that state of um, you basically addressed, much like what you said, the example you gave with the glass of water. You had so much latitude for your body to take on stress without expressing. But when you're at capacity and your nervous system is just stuffed with pain and anger and traumas and so on and so forth, eventually it has to show it on the body to say, you really need to deal with this.
Well, our
So,
body talks, I think. Our body talks to us about what it needs and when it
yes.
needs something. And it's important I talk a lot in my work about the language of pain and learning how to become versed in the language of pain. Now, some pain is great, other pain, maybe not so great. And I mean more and above and beyond just a sensation that's uncomfortable, because some pain is actually things switching back on and
Yes.
opening up. But you need to learn to connect to it in a way that is kind and gentle and attentive,
Hmm.
um, because the body needs that level of listening in order to let it go.
Yeah.
And as soon as you do connect to it properly, the body goes, "Oh, okay, you've acknowledged me. I don't need to hold on to this anymore. We're good," and it
Yes.
kind of moves on, you know.
Hmm.
But we've been given a very different framework around pain. We have been taught to avoid it at all costs, to get away from it as quickly as possible, and to suppress it. And it's an uncomfortable subject. I get it. However, it also gives you information about what you most need.
Hmm.
And it can come in lovely, gentle, beautiful ways as well. Like, oh, I really feel like I'd like a warm bath. And you can do it that way round. But sometimes and often, it's only when something hurts or something's uncomfortable that we listen and pay attention and do something about it. And whilst I'm very grateful at that time that I had some skills, I will
Yes.
say that when I first found out about what my partner had, and when I first was in an environment where I had so many people saying so many negative things to him, it was probably the least calm I've ever been in a medical environment.
Hmm.
Um, I remember, especially when he was first diagnosed, he had candida coming out of his mouth,
Hmm.
because he was so unwell. And they were encouraging and suggesting that he eat sweets, cream, um, eh, donuts, biscuits. This was the list he was given of things to eat. And I remember having a huge
Goodness.
argument with one of the doctors. It's the only time I've ever really argued with a doctor, because I couldn't understand why they were doing that. It made literally no sense to me. I was like, why this over lots of like high quality protein and good quality fats? And I was like, how about something like quinoa? Can we get him on something like that? And I remember the doctor saying to me, I don't know what that is. And it made me really stop and think at the time. And what it got me to realize was, okay, well, they're not asking these questions because they don't know these questions, maybe.
Yes.
And it actually diffused some of the anger in me. It's what allowed me to calm down, But it made me incredibly determined because it made me realize maybe I have some information, and maybe the only information I have is I need to ask better questions. But I need to be asking elsewhere because these people don't have the answers that I'm looking for in this situation. And it was like it propelled me towards like the passion I have now and have maintained around natural healing. Um, where I started looking into like what else could we be doing. I did lots of research. I read books. I went on the internet. It was still the early days of the internet. I managed to find a lady in the Bay Area in San Francisco who was talking about natural health. I later found out she was a protege of Hannah Kruger and had trained in the work of Hulda Clark. And I took my partner to see her. We went out there. I took out a loan. I was like, this is life or death. I want to make sure that we're throwing everything at this. And I took him to see her, and we went through like a 6-month protocol. Now, bear in mind, the doctors had given him less than a year to live. So I wanted to go all in with it. I wanted to make sure he had opportunity to try all the different possibilities of what could support him in his health. And I even like went along with it in terms of like doing the protocols myself as well, because I wanted to know, like, is it natural, but does it also work? Like, this is one of my most important questions. Like, I believe that the body is capable, like I said at the beginning, of miraculous things. The biggest question is it something the body can recognize? Is it natural enough for the body? And is it effective? Like, does it actually deliver a result? And I remember being excited to have found somebody who was talking about possibilities of wellness from what he was dealing with, and also starting to notice just a massive shift in myself around, because my mum did some great work with being younger, but I'd also gotten into eating bad things, and doing not so great things with, like it was very anti my mum at the time, but I think between the age of like 14 and maybe 18, I was very into McDonald's, for example, which I would never touch now, but because I wasn't allowed it when I was really young, I was like, I want to know what this thing is. And so I'd formed some bad habits that then I was able to take back the other way, probably a little bit easier because I knew other ways of making different foods, for example, because I'd grown up with natural foods and my mum always made things that taste really good. But it was a good way of me dipping into what most people deal with and then seeing how do you come out the other side. And I remember my partner really struggling with the change a lot, fighting it, battling against it. Like, his mindset was like, the doctors have told me this is what my diagnosis is. Like, I need to respect that. And this is all I can do. Like, they've told me there's nothing else can happen. And it really made me think and realize around the power and importance of critical thinking in a situation. I think the important thing to realize is that any human that you're in front of, it doesn't matter what they are. They can be a doctor, they can be a prime minister, they could be somebody on the street. Every single person in front of you is human, and they are fallible, and they have opinions, and there have been things that have happened along their lives that have led them to those opinions. It doesn't mean that those opinions are true for you. It doesn't mean you have to adopt those opinions. The question you have to be asking is, what is right for me? And when I ask enough questions and I feel like what feels like a yes versus a no in myself, is this accurate? Am I seeing the results that I could be seeing? And if I'm not getting to a result, I need to ask a different set of questions, or maybe I need to ask somebody else. Now, I know when you're dealing with health, it's scary, because I know, just having been in that environment, like, there's so many things that people throw at you. You should do this, you should do that, you should try this. And that can be by itself incredibly overwhelming. And when you're not feeling well anyway, the last thing that you want to do is to be, researching. I believe, from my own experience with this, that the most important question you can ask yourself is, what do I need most in this moment? What's the next thing that I need? And being really honest with yourself, because it's very easy to go down the road of, well, I just need to relax. I I need to like get away from this. And yes, sometimes you do need to step back a little bit in order to get a clearer answer about what you need, but it's more than just sticking your head in the sand. Um, but I remember being very struck by my partner's mindset around it. And I think because it was something that, like I said, he'd watched this film and he'd been really afraid of it for like some years before. And I remember thinking, even like when he first said it, this is strange. But he must have had a feeling and a knowing in himself that he was sick in that way, to have that level of panic around it.
Yeah,
Um,
he had a response. His body probably
yeah.
responded
And there was a
to that thought.
fixation around it, you know?
Yes.
Um, and and that's okay. Like I think everybody also has their path. Our first date, the first thing he said to me, and again, you have to listen. People tell you who they are. He said to me, "I'm going to die young." He told me like on our first date. He's like, "I don't want to get old. I think getting old is a terrible idea. I'm going to die young."
Wow.
And I was like, "Okay, that's a strange thing to say, but sure." I'm like, I personally, I love aging. I think it's an exciting thing because you
Oh,
develop who you are as a character and you can feel better and better and better as you age.
it's a privilege
Um,
actually
it is
to get
such a
old.
privilege.
Hmm.
But he told me on our first date, I'm going to die young. So there's things he had already in his mind that were very cemented. And whilst he felt better from many of the things that we did, and he was told, he only had a year to live, he lived for another 2 years. He did pass, and it was incredibly sad and very sobering in a lot of ways as well, in terms of really understanding, for me at least, how much each person, each of us has to be responsible for our own well-being. You
Hmm.
can't, there's no way you can put somebody on your back and take them to health. Like your journey to
Absolutely.
wellness is yours. Nobody else can own that for you. Nobody else can do that for you. It doesn't matter how much they love you. It doesn't matter what they say they want to do for you. The only person who can be in that process is you. And it really, that was very clarifying for me. It taught me something that I I work with to this day, with people when I'm supporting them with connecting to their own bodies so that they are listening to what their bodies are trying to tell them. Um, no one can fight that fight for you. It's yours. Um,
I
so
I really think that, and I've only started to sort of uncover this after I've gone through my own events. And I think that oftentimes nothing we learn from books is as valuable as what we learn on our own skin or from life itself, the experiences. But I think that, and now it's become so much more obvious, and your story speaks to this as well. Emotion is the language of the body, and emotions that are so low vibrating, like shame or fear, they speak such a different language than love and acceptance. And I think that energetically, even so, from a vibration perspective or from a frequency perspective, when someone believes that they're contaminated or broken, you kind of command the body to express that. And I think that things like gratitude or faith, and taking action in line with those things really rewire the immune response. And so, as such, and of course, it's going to sound so woo for. I'd like to take a quick break now to let you know that today's show is sponsored by my book, Against Medical Advice. This book is a memoir, and it tells the story of how I built my life back after suffering a stroke during my divorce. I discuss the nutritional, lifestyle, and mindset aspects that I put into practice to regain my health and rebuild my life. The book has been a labor of love, both writing it and publishing it, and I couldn't be more proud of it. Please pick up your copy from Amazon. For your very own signed copy, my email address is simone@simonegisondi.com. Oh, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd please consider leaving a review once you've read the book. And now, back to the show. For the audience, there's such a thing as vibrational immunity, and we need to learn how to cultivate that, because this is how the nervous system regulates. And this is how you achieve coherence, the heart, the mind being in full alignment to be able to get to that level of health that we want as the outcome. And if you've ever heard of Anita Moorjani, she's such an inspiration because she herself went to the last, and she was given almost no time to live anymore because she had her cancer has metastasized had rather metastasized in her body, and she had what I believe is a near death experience. And then she came back. Obviously, she wrote the book Dying to Be Me. So she had stepped so much outside of being aligned with who she really was. And I think a lot of that happens to a lot of us. And if we don't address those roots. But at the same time, I think what you said about your partner, how he sort of, and I don't want to use the word prophesize, but he actually spoke that he was going to, perhaps maybe that was just his tapping into the truth of the higher self, perhaps. Because I also believe that a lot of people have these, and again, I'm going into woo land here a little bit, those soul contracts that we fulfill based on what we have agreed to experience here
Mhm.
and within the time frames, but taking into account that at all times we have the free will to be able to change that, much like what Anita Murjani kind of, and I'm trying to get her on the show too. I'm connected with one of her personal friends, but I think that your story speaks so much to that as well, that what we believe is ends up manifesting or expressing in the body, or it takes you to where you want to go. You dictate all the time. So it's important that we honor those things. But Savannah, I'm curious, what did it all mean for you and your health that you've gone through this experience with your partner?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. For me and my own health, I think the biggest thing that it brought me back to was my own responsibility for my own health.
Absolutely.
I mean, I became a practitioner and I practiced on others for many years. I now no longer do that, but I do guide people through things.
Mm-hmm.
But it really it taught me to care. It taught me to care for myself very deeply, very sincerely, um, and to also encourage that in other people. I think it was almost like a tuning fork for me
Yeah.
for what I've gone on to do, and I would not have been able to do what I've done again. Although my mum asked me this great question of how do you feel, and that was amazing to set the stage. This situation with my partner at the time, if that hadn't happened, I doubt I would have stayed as grounded as I have been, because for me that question is always when I'm in front of somebody is what's the most important for this person right now? What's the most important for me right now? And how can we honor both of these things? And I'm just really, really grateful for all of it. I wouldn't change any of it. I wouldn't wish it on anybody because it was a really hard process. Um, but it also got me obsessed with body work, research, asking questions, and to just take a little bit of what you've said was woo into something that I actually think is very physical, and there's some science behind it, is the fascia piece. Because they've now been able to show that fascia, which is the web within the body, which a lot of people just think is connective tissue. It's a combination of liquid and solid. And it is a web. It does go around all the muscles and all the organs, and it is everywhere. It is something that responds to emotion. So, for example,
Yes.
you put it in emotion that is stress, it contracts, and you can take it out of the body and do this. So you can see that it's happening irrespective of somebody's psychology, as it were, but they can mimic the chemical qualities of what stress looks like. So the fascia will shrink. You put the same fascia in a chemical environment of happiness and peace, and relaxation, and open and free is what it
Right.
does. So I
Okay.
think like it got me to start to work with fascia before I even really knew what fascia was. So when I was doing body work at the early stages, I that's all I was listening for. I was just being present to the sensation and the emotion in the person's body and being with it until it was ready to change into something else. and people would have these big openings and these big emotional releases.
Wow.
And I didn't really understand why until a little bit later on. And I think I wouldn't have even been able to be that present to that had I not had these experiences. All of these things led me to that point. Um, I got to the stage where I would ask, I had like a 12-page questionnaire that was double-sided of a whole list of things I would ask people about their background. So yes, we would deal with the emotional piece, but we'd also look at the environmental piece. We would look at, you know, the toxic load. We would look at how are your organs coping, all things I know you do with the amazing work that
Yes.
you do. And I remember after 8 years of working with that, um, being very it being very clear that there were patterns, really distinct patterns. Everybody is unique, first of all, but there are some fundamental things that I would say are predominantly lifestyle based
Hmm.
that disable our ability to be coherent in our bodies, to be coherent in our emotions, and to be coherent physically because of congestion in our tissues. And that can build up over time. And I always think I love the saying from Einstein, which is if you're unable to explain something simply, you don't understand it. And I remember thinking like that really fits with these patterns that I'm seeing in people because there are fundamental things that are the same in everybody. We are living in a toxic world.
Yeah.
We are living in an environment where our food sources are not necessarily the best quality. Many of them are not organic. There are all these things we speak about all of the time. Um, and I I really kind of dug into a lot of those pieces because of the experience with this with my partner, because of taking him to the people that I went and learned from, and then practicing what I learned on myself and on other people, because everything that I learned I embodied and tested. Like everything I talk about I do. I'm more than just ticking a box when I'm like, oh, you should go and do this, you should go and that. This is something I live and breathe and keep living and breathing
Right.
because it's the quality with which I choose to live my life, and it's the quality I want to transmit to other people is possible with their lives and their vitality and their well-being. Um, and I remember initially, like I was more focused, I think, on like organ health, and gut health, and those things are really, really cool. But it was about it must have been like nearly 13 years ago now. I first came across Touchstone Essentials, which is who you mentioned at the beginning,
Yeah.
um, that I work with. And I remember having a conversation with Eddie Stone, who's the founder of the company just before they were like as the company was forming, before it was even before the products were out, any of that. And a friend of mine had introduced me to him, and the friend was saying, like, you really need to look at heavy metal detox. And I was like, I've done all these things, I'm doing all these other cleanses. I'm not sure that's even really relevant, to be honest. Maybe it will help me, but I don't think it's, going to be that significant. And I remember and that's after years of doing stuff and seeing great results. But I remember then trying it because I will always test things as long as it's natural, as long as it's clean, as long as there's some science behind it. I will be interested in taking a look. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. And I remember trying the Zeolite Detox pack and
Yeah.
being blown away. I could not believe that. I didn't even know that I had a heavy metal load. Um,
Yes.
I
Everybody
asked my,
does.
I
Yep.
know, I know,
Yep.
but I was like, I've done liver cleanses, I've done kidney cleanses, I've done colon cleanses, I've done like these herbs and this and candida cleanses. Like I'd done so many different things. I really didn't think it was going to have a strong impact on me. And I asked my mum, I was like, why would this be so powerful? And she said to me, bless her, she was amazing in a lot of ways, but she had 10 mercury fillings removed while she was pregnant with me.
Oh
And
no.
so I was
Yes.
exposed in utero to
Yes.
heavy
Yes. Yes.
metals in a
Yes.
very
Yes.
significant dose. And so for me, having something that took that out then meant that the other work I was doing, all the other things, started to stack even more powerfully than before. Because it was a little bit like I could maintain it, but it was work. Like it was a lot of work.
Yep.
And I always think that with health, and I think this is where a lot of people go wrong, they think that it has to be hard. And the answer is if you do it in the right order, if you put your foundational pieces in place, actually, you're then just tweaking and it's really quite easy. Um, so yeah, I was touched deeply by what is possible when you remove heavy metals as well, and how much stronger the terrain in the body can be without that toxic burden, that toxic load. I mean, I already thought that 95% of what we were dealing with in our bodies was lifestyle. This was just another significant layer,
Yeah.
which brought me then into kind of addressing the heavy metal piece. It's a bit like I suppose what I was doing before was I was putting good quality plaster over cracks, but maybe cracks that were like whole walls that were cracked, you know what I mean? And so, of course, it was going to crack again, give it a little bit of time. And I kind of think about it like that with the body. Like it's really, like I said, those foundational pieces, like making sure that the foundations are solid,
Yeah.
um, the structure is sound, and then you're putting good quality things in. It makes it then very, very easy.
I
Um,
think you touch so well on, because a lot of times people have, and everything that you are and what you practice speaks to this. Everybody believes that if you throw something physical at the body, but you ignore your mental aspect or your, let's say, emotional aspect, your spiritual, if there is such a thing, if you believe in anything or you are anchored in anything spiritual, whatever that may mean to you, when those things are unaddressed or they're chaotic or they're not in alignment, it will naturally just express on the body. So a lot of times people think that just the body broke because the body broke, because it's flawed or because it's broken or because it's imperfect or it has a glitch. I did a consult yesterday with a lady and she was telling me how the doctor that she saw told her, well, it's just a glitch in your body. That's just how it is. But the body is never born with those glitches. It's born according to a template or a blueprint that is has everything. And I was, even when I was speaking with her, I was telling her, I said, have you ever wondered why your body knows naturally how to eliminate, how, for you to go pee? Or
yeah,
do you
exactly.
wonder why your heart just knows how to beat and how
Mm.
often to beat and in what rhythm and why that is considered to be normal? So a lot of times what we do is we just throw a lot of things at the body, expecting it to obey. So we try to coerce it and force it into obedience so that it can just go back to what it naturally was. But oftentimes we do that with things that the body doesn't even recognize, and things that are unnatural, instead of just going maybe the harder route and putting in the work, much like what you said, how you saw the results as you were stacking things. And I also want to emphasize, because, and I love Touchstone as well, and I'm such a big believer, and I'm very discerning when it comes to products out on the market, because like you, because I'm a practitioner, what I tell people to do is what I do for myself and for my family. So I want people to understand that, again, if this is too much woo woo, I'm happy to, I would love to get some feedback from the audience and we could talk about it in more detail. But everything has a vibrational, or a frequency. It has some sort of something that it vibrates at, and diseases have that, microbes have that, parasites have that, the heavy metals that you spoke about have that. So when your body is supposed to be at a certain vibration, or and this is obviously measured, there are measuring tools out there, and then you introduce things such as the heavy metals, such as the parasites, such as things that actually take that vibration out of what it should be, out of the range that it should be, much like how pH works. If
Yeah,
our blood, which is very tightly controlled to be at the 7.3 range, and that's why I say range because it's not the exact one, but if the body maintains that so tightly, it's because it knows, again, intelligence, that if it goes out of that range, death will soon follow. So the body, when we introduce these things that throw off our vibration, which is where it should be at, will obviously show up as disease, as illness, as dysfunction, or whatnot. So it's important for people, and this is why, because I've done my research with Touchstone, that the products that we introduce in the body to bring back the coherence or to bring back the vibration to the level it should be at, please, I beg of you, go and invest in things that are actually clean and natural,
Yeah.
and utilize products from companies that are actually there to help. Do your research if necessary to see the kind of integrity and what the mission, vision, and value of the company is, so that you can actually utilize products that are going to help you. And I know that you will probably agree with me on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. When we talk about detoxification, is, and I know that Touchstone has the greatest, and you've talked about one of the products I use that I too use myself, and I use their greens as well. I would like to maybe even throw that in as well, because it's obviously such a benefit to the body to bring in things that bring coherence and balance. But detoxification is literally probably one of the foremost important tools that we can use to take out the things that disrupt that vibration that we talked about. And oftentimes, so tell us a little bit about the zeolite, because I want people to understand that when they say they do a detox and they don't have a proper binder to sort of usher things out of the body, so
Mhm.
these things have to attach themselves to something that
Mhm.
the body recognize it, and then it has to usher it out of the body through its proper channels of elimination. So it's important for people to understand that these products are well researched and they serve a purpose, and how detoxification is not only, because I know you and I talked about this, detoxification is not only for the attainment of health after you've gone through illness, but also for the maintenance of health and the prevention of illness and disease. So this is not something that you use as a reaction. Oh my goodness, I'm sick now, so I have to detox. No, this is something that you should do on an ongoing basis to be able to maintain the health you're enjoying, to be able to reclaim the health that you may have lost, or to be able to prevent anything that may come your way, so that even if it does, and this circles back to what your story was like, your body's in such a healthy state that it's just not going to touch you.
Mhm. I agree. And I mean, I think the most important thing, as you've said, is recognizing that it's an ongoing process. I like to think of it a little bit, zeolite specifically, and specifically the one that Touchstone uses. And the reason I love theirs specifically over others is purely because they do the work to clean it. It's 100% natural, and they
Yeah,
make sure that when it arrives in your body, it arrives fully ready to do the job it's there to do. There are no
that's right.
toxins in there or attached to it already. It's just completely available to your body to do the cleaning process, and it acts a little bit like a magnet. I call it like a shower for your insides, because I
Yeah,
think psychologically it's an easy way for people to remember, like, oh, I wash myself every day. This is like doing that for your insides. And there's no way of supplementing that in any other format. Yeah, you might want to go deeper and do some organ cleansing as well, or you might want to do some parasite cleansing too. Like all of those things you can do, but if you're not doing the basic clean every single day with the toxins that are in our environment, then you're gonna struggle. And I particularly love zeolite because, and touchstones one obviously, because it is very kind with how it moves through the body. It places no burden on your organs, so your kidney and your liver can relax because it's acting as a magnet. It's only in your body for 4 to 6 hours,
hmm,
and it removes itself from your body using normal bodily functions like sweating or urinating. So
yeah,
there's no strain on your body to do this. All it is doing is helping. It makes the pathways, the detoxification pathways, more open. It removes anything that's stuck on the entrance to the cells, so the cells can
yeah,
then absorb the nutrients better. So you're giving yourself a foundation that your body can work from, and you're making it easier for yourself, basically. So
yes,
for me, it's the foundational piece, and everything else kind of comes after that. So especially if you're, I mean, I talk about it doing heavy metals and I speak about it as heavy metals, but actually it also does microplastics, glyphosates.
that's
Um,
right.
the forever chemicals that get stuck in the body. And that's the biggest issue with things like heavy metals in the body. It needs something that chelates it to remove it from the body. The body cannot remove this itself. So it doesn't have the pathways for it. So it needs to bind to something in order
That's
for
right.
it to be taken out.
Hmm.
And this is the safest binder that I have come across, and I have tested other ones.
Yeah.
This is the safest, easiest, cleanest that I've come across and the most effective. And like I said at the beginning, like, is it natural? Does it work? Do you get results? And I can say yes the whole way through with
Yeah.
this.
Across the
Um,
board.
yeah, 100%.
And I've used this product myself, and as you know, one of the things that I've studied was about 10 years ago was detoxification, and not just detoxification in the sense of, and I know that this word is such a buzzword and everybody uses it so loosely. I did one of my other consults that I did yesterday. I asked the person and I said, "Have you done any other detoxes or cleanses?" And she says, "Yes." And then I said, "Which one did you do?" So she names this product, and I went and I Googled it, and I was horrified at what they actually like. I mean, they have these like, what do you call them? Like fat burners
Mm.
in them. So this is supposed to be a detox because she said, but I lost 9 pounds. So you lose a lot of water. It's very restrictive. I mean, she wasn't eating. It was supposed to be just a shake with a powder, and that's all you kind of do. And so I'm very, um, very weary when people use the word detox, and I really want to have the conversation with them because it's important to know that what I studied was regenerative detoxification. So you want to detoxify to be able to regenerate, not for the sake of losing weight, but you really want to take the gunk out of the cells. You want to take out anything that's in the organs so that it can actually carry out its function running on all cylinders in a clean environment. So it's really, really, really important that people do detoxification properly. This program that she did, I asked her, did it have a step where it actually helps you open the channels of elimination, or at least ensuring that your channels of elimination are already open so that you can eliminate? And so she wants to do this program, or she wants to do some sort of detoxification with her husband. So I'm going to work with them to put this together. But she was telling me how he has severe skin issues, and I told her, I said, skin is actually one of the detox organs. It's actually
The
the
biggest
largest one in the
elimination route.
body.
Yeah, it will come
And
out through the skin.
so if it's closed and then things are trying to come out and it's sealed shut, that stuff stays inside. So,
Hmm.
yes, it's super important that people understand that the proper binders, so that the body in its intelligence, and we've touched on how intelligent the body is, can actually take it out through other channels of elimination that are available to it. But part of the process of doing the detox is to ensure that your channels are open. So there is a specific way that you should approach this in, so that you get the desired results rather than just another thing that you're going to chalk up as, well, I tried it and it didn't work,
Yeah.
if it's not done properly. And I know that the process of elimination, especially when you use products that are clean, much like what I was just saying, like they were using fat burners, that is not a detox. If you're going to put zeolite instead of a fat burner, you have such better outcomes. So, super important for
Especially if
people
it's
to
clean
understand.
zeolite.
Yes, and of course, in its entirety. I have to tell you, even for me, when I started doing this kind of work, it was so much focused on the physical, but I've become so fascinated by the emotional aspect. And your story was such an impactful one for me because it helped me look, when I look back to some of the medical events that I've gone through, and I just said one was, complete nervous breakdown because my nervous system just didn't have the capacity to hold anything else.
Mhm.
So I love the analogy you gave. It's so important that you have that capacity built in so that when something shows up that may be unexpected, your body can actually withstand it rather than, you completely collapse your entire system. So it's very important that you do this work along the way. Much like how you say you have savings in your bank account in the event that a rainy day comes, it's there, it helps you out, you don't have to panic. Um, as
And
well
I think
as
it's also about topping it up, isn't it? Like I said earlier, one of the things I was doing a lot of was energy work. And
mhm,
what I mean by that is I was actually putting my hands on myself and being present to those particular areas the whole way through my body.
yes.
And what that meant was I was really, really listening. And then if there was emotion there, I was letting it go. And I think that's something we can all of us actually do,
Hmm.
um, just by showing up for ourselves. It's giving ourselves that time, because if we can do that, what happens is we then build capacity again. There's more to it, like there are other tools, but even just that
Absolutely.
as a baseline, we are all of these things. We are emotional beings and we have a very physical experience, and we need to be
Yes.
able to have care and hygiene with both. And hygiene isn't necessarily about it always being positive and wonderful. Even detox isn't necessarily about it always being positive and wonderful, but the kinder you are to your body and the more easy you make the process for it, the better it can serve you. And the easier also it then becomes for releasing emotions as well. And I notice very specifically when I've been working with people who are very unwell or have been dealing with a lot of big emotions, if you begin to clean out the body, that releases. If you begin to release the emotions, the cleaning becomes easier. Like we work together with these things, and the quicker
Always.
I think we can work coherently with both sides of ourselves, the easier it is to bring health into balance.
Always. It's so much better to just start from the beginning rather than start from the end. Oftentimes, people don't recognize the fact that the physical is actually the last frontier where the body, where the everything is shown to you, the tangible, but the beginning is so much further ahead in front of it. So, I want you to maybe in closing let the audience know from your practice, especially with your own lived experiences, such as this amazing story that you just told us. Um, what are your top three anchors for coherence and immunity for people? You spoke to the fact that energy work is important, but if the body could speak right now, what do you think it would tell people, and how can they anchor in coherence and immunity in three simple ways?
I love this question. The first one would definitely be the practice of knowing how you feel and being brave enough to voice it. And that doesn't necessarily mean having to voice it to a person. You can voice it to a journal, or you can paint it, or you can write it down. It can be a number of different ways, as long as you're actually acknowledging it rather than running away from it.
That's right.
So that's probably the very first thing. The second thing I would say is respect your body, be kind to it,
Yes. Yes.
especially in any process that you take it through for health, or if it's exercise. All of everything that you do to your body is in your care. And the question I would ask you is, are you actually caring for it? Like care about your body, not above and beyond the aesthetic of it. That bit, ironically, and I kind of love it, if you look after all these pieces, that takes care of itself. The aesthetic
So
looks
true.
after itself.
So true.
If you can care about what your body needs and look after it well, it will serve you like nothing else that you can lay your hands on. It's probably the most precious thing you are in possession of. So that's the second thing I would say is really, really care. And I think the third thing would be really make sure that you are listening to yourself and listening to people who you respect and who have done their research, and make sure you are using things that support both of those aspects of yourself to be able to feel well, by making sure that you're clear, and to be able to be physically well by making sure that you're cleaning the body and strengthening the body and nourishing the body in ways that it can comprehend. I mean, I think if people do nothing else from this conversation, I really do love the Zeolite Detox Pack. Like, it's the simplest way to start with something that is manageable. You don't have to change anything else in your lifestyle initially, but it
Yeah.
will begin to give you some idea of what's under the surface. And I remember when I first started detoxing, I was quite surprised by how Um, when I was cleaner, I was less angry. When I was, on the other side of like, it would happen with certain foods, for example. I was quite sensitive to certain foods, and when I'd have the zeolites, or when I would have like a liver cleanse, before I might be like, "Arr," and I'd be like hangry. People talk about hangry all the time, don't they?
Yep, I know
Like
that
I'm
term.
hangry. And I think a lot of that is because the blood sugars have dropped dramatically, and we've got to a stage where we haven't really listened early enough, and we need to be caring a little bit sooner. Or we've eaten something that has just actually really done a number in our guts.
Hmm.
Like for me, if I have certain vinegars, me and vinegars, we don't get on because the fermentation, or I think it's probably the sulfates, to be fair. My
Yeah,
body's like, no. But if I have had something like that and I have the zeolite, it balances out, and it's within, like, for me, it's like within a minute. It's crazy,
yeah,
because my body is so attuned now. But I think everybody can access that. So I think if you do nothing else from this, if you take nothing else away from this, I'm hoping there's lots you can take away from this, but
absolutely.
it would be to start with the zeolite detox pack. And I there's a I'll the link if you want to, which I'll make sure that you've got as well, Simone, to put popping
Yep.
underneath this, is https bit.ly-sg detox. And just starting really simply with that at least begins to give your body a baseline where you can then start to ask your better questions in terms of creating better health for yourself as you move forward through the world.
I love that advice because I think these products meet people where they're at. So although the world of, let's say, energy medicine, much like what we were talking about earlier, is such a foreign subject even at this stage for you, it's so beneficial to at least start taking things out of the body that don't belong there. So cleaning out the body in a way that it does bring clarity. I remember when I first did my first detox after I studied it back in the US. Um, I remember, so I did it for 3 months. I was on this detox for 3 months. I mean, I had had a stroke. So I was just about 3 years removed from a stroke. So I really needed it. I had like medications in my system. And I remember the first thing that I could tell you was the thing that I noticed the most was I was so sharp in the mind and so clear headed. It was insane how much, because I had gone through brain fog and I was affected by things, and of course, everything gets impacted, your immune system, your lymphatic system, all of these things just kind of bog down all of your systems. But once you remove what's not supposed to be there, and I myself didn't know anything about energy medicine at the time, although my very nature is such that I'm very sort of ambitious and driven when I want to achieve something, that I leave no stone unturned. And I actually remember anchoring myself in the belief that I will accept no other outcome other than me being okay after this. Like, this is going to work out in my favor no matter what.
Exactly.
And I wanted to sort of speak to this about how, because your story is a perfect reflection of this. While a lot of people, if they were to listen to this story, let's say from afar, they would think that you, the woman who never got sick, maybe was just lucky. Oh my God, she's so lucky, or she was so lucky that she didn't. But um, I don't see that woman as lucky, but as proof of what's possible when the body's intelligence, the heart, the soul, everything is aligned, and the terrain remains sovereign,
Yeah.
and you have so much power to sort of direct it in the direction that you want to take it in your desired outcomes. Because I think the body doesn't betray us; it reflects to us what it needs so that we can address it. I said this yesterday in my consult, that every cell listens to our thoughts, our emotions, and our beliefs at all times. And I remember hearing one time one woman say that doctors literally scare us to death. And this was
Mhm.
within the context of cancer. So if you accept what the medical industry tells you, that, cancer is a death sentence, then you accept that. You basically give instructions to the body to carry that out for you. But in this, in your story, maybe health isn't the absence of exposure. Maybe it's the um, presence of coherence. So if we have coherence and we have calm and the nervous system is not maxed, health is inevitable.
Mhm.
So
And
I
I
want,
have sorry,
yeah,
I
I
was
want
just
people
going to
to
say I have a
understand.
little story to that because I went away on a road trip with a friend in America,
Hmm.
and she was feeling really ill, and she thought maybe she'd pick something up on the plane. We went in a sauna, we were in a car, just her and me for like 400 miles. And
Yeah,
the day after we got to our destination, she found out she had COVID. And I remained COVID free the whole time. Like I had no symptoms, no problems. And I often say, I don't actually believe in contagious in the way that most people do. I think if I need it, then I'll get it. And if I need it, it's because there's something I need to process. And it often will have an emotional component to it of something that I need to
absolutely.
bring back into balance. And I think how we look at contagious is based on one framework that maybe just needs a bit more information adding to it so that people can view it from a different perspective.
Yes. So, Savannah, before we go, I really want, I mean, you're such a wealth of information, and just this story alone makes you inspirational and exemplary, for lack of a better term. Where can people find you? Where can people book with you if they want to work with you? I would definitely want to have you back so that we could talk about the other side, the face mapping and all of that stuff, only because I absolutely love that kind of stuff. And I really think that the audience needs to know, because that's another art that people should be made aware of. So we'll have that conversation if you're open to it another time.
Love
But
to.
for the time being, where can people find you on social media? How can they connect with you? How can they book with you so that they can work with you?
Thank you. So, the best place to find me is probably either my website, which is just my name, savannahalaia.com, or on Instagram. And again, that's just my name, Savannah Alaia. And I work predominantly through my programs and do the occasional in-person pop-up with people who are in my programs. And I yeah, I would be fascinated to hear from all of you with the different things that you're dealing with or anything that you're curious about in your own life. But I most importantly want to encourage you to learn to listen to and read what's happening in your own body so that you can be in the driving seat, or at least in a very key part of the conversation of whatever is happening in your health. You know, you show up to any appointments, whether it is a massage treatment or whether it is that you're going to see a doctor, that health, that journey, that's yours. And you own that for the rest of your life. And I just want to encourage you to stay in the role of being in charge of what happens on that journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Okay, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. If you do want to get in touch with Savannah and you didn't catch her particulars or her contact information, please get in touch with me. I will put you in touch with her. All the information that she provided you with is going to be in the show notes. Thank you for joining us and for listening to this amazing conversation. It wasn't about denying reality. Of course, there are illnesses out there, there are infections out there, but we're not going to deny that they exist. But it was about expanding what can happen, remembering that immunity isn't just about antibodies. It's actually about alignment. There are components to health that are outside the realm of what we've been taught. And we need to go back to remembering that those exist. So it's the chemistry of the body when it's in a state of peace, the physics of faith and belief, and the biology of coherence. And if this conversation stirred something inside of you, if it reminded you that the body is sacred, because it is, and it's got intelligence, because it does, you can connect with me or with Savannah. Of course, we could walk you through how you can achieve that level of health through the link in the show notes, as I promised you. And until next time, remember, your body's not a battleground. Don't fight it. Work with it, not against it. There is consciousness involved, there is energy, and healing is not something that you chase after. It's something that you remember and you help your body to achieve. So thank you so much for joining Health Confidential. We will talk to Savannah in the near future. I promise you guys that. And remember, this has been a story of the body that just doesn't break. It's possible for all of you out there. We'll see you in the next show. Thank you so much for joining me on Health Confidential, where healing is more than just symptom relief. It's a return to the body's original blueprint, guided by truth, intuition, and cellular intelligence. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And follow me on Instagram at simone.gisondi for daily insights, behind the scenes wisdom, and holistic inspiration. To explore working with me and to get your own custom made healing protocol, visit simonegisondi.com and book your private consultation to start working together. Remember, your body is sacred, your intuition is gold, and healing is your birthright. I'm Simone Gisondi, and this has been Health Confidential. See you in the next episode.